President Trump continues to deal with the fallout from his own supporters who are demanding transparency regarding convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. But now there's a change in tune from the president. Trump, moments ago in a cabinet meeting, referred to the so-called Epstein files as a hoax. Here's that.
You said this was all a hoax. Has your attorney general told you this was a hoax? What evidence have you seen?
No, it's not the attorney general. No, I know it's a hoax. It's started by Democrats. It's been run by the Democrats for 4 years. You had Christopher Wray and these characters and Comey before him. And it's a bad group. It started, actually, look at the Steele dossier that turned out to be a total hoax. The 51 agents, the intelligence, so-called intelligence agents, it was a hoax. It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats. And some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
So let's get to CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen. Jake, catch us up to speed here, because we remember it's been attributed to Pam Bondi herself that the files were on her desk.
That's right. And that while that feels like months ago, that's what really started all of this, is that President Trump's pledge to be the most transparent administration in history by releasing documents of which have been in the public domain and talked about for a long time. Think about the RFK assassination files, potentially Martin Luther King's assassination files, things that we just haven't not had a comprehensive look at. The Epstein ones by far are kind of the biggest top of the menu item for President Trump and his supporters, and we've seen this saga play out over the last 8 or 9 days or so since this memo was first released last week. There was a conservative blowback. As we know, Dan Bongino took a day off of work because he wasn't happy with how the Department of Justice and the FBI hadn't necessarily answered questions that potentially he had, but also just MAGA influencers and conservatives on social media had about some missing time in the tape that was released by the Department of Justice. In addition to that, what happened to this client list, which the Department of Justice says doesn't exist, but at the same time, people believe that because Epstein was in jail for all the terrible acts that he did. Ghislaine Maxwell is currently in prison for what she did, that there has to be some kind of underlying documents at the base of this that people believe would prove right. And whether Trump is in them or not, we're really seeing this push for this full release after Pam Bondi said that there would be no further releases. We saw Pam Bondi take some questions yesterday and say that she didn't want to talk about it. Then she engaged and said she wasn't going to talk about personnel matters, but said and kind of threw the President Trump under the bus, saying that she hadn't heard from him that he wanted her to release more documents. So really where we stand today is President Trump kind of blames some past supporters, saying that they bought these conspiracy theories that he blames on Democrats hook, line, and sinker. He calls it BS and called his supporters weaklings for kind of buying into this narrative that potentially, there's more here than what the Department of Justice says, but also that there could be something credible. President Trump said he's directed her to release any more credible documents that could potentially be out there, and we're unsure what specifically those are.
Well, and who gets to say what part of the documents are credible or not credible is my big question today, and I am sure the question of many people, not the least of which House Speaker Mike Johnson. So let's get to another big case. It's the flashpoint case in the deportation conversation in our country about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There's a hearing, we understand, in Tennessee. It's about to start over whether he'll be released from federal custody, maybe to go back to Maryland to be close to his wife, his child, while he awaits trial on human smuggling. The government indicated they could deport him, though, if he's released. Can you talk about those arguments today?
That's right, Reed. The left hand of the government is really not talking to the right still over this fallout of what to do with Kilmar Abrego Garcia should he be released from federal detention. Today, the Department of Homeland Security and ICE say that if he is released by this judge, which the Department of Justice wants potentially, then they would take him, move him to an ICE detention center, and remove him to a third-party country, although it is unclear, and ICE officials said in court last week where that country would specifically be. A judge in Maryland said she's very concerned that he's not going to be given the due process rights he didn't get the first time when he was sent to El Salvador without any notice. And so she says she's willing to potentially block his deportation further. And Abrego Garcia's attorneys in Tennessee are actually arguing for him against the norm to keep him in detention. Because if he is in detention through this criminal trial, can potentially prove his innocence, then he and his attorneys can take on the bigger challenge here, which is what happens after that, or should he ever be a free man for even moments as the Trump administration has made clear, they don't intend to let him walk out of the courthouse or go back to his family anytime soon without either being sent to be deported or being tagged to potentially be deported immediately without any kind of due process.
All right, Jake Rosen, keep chasing the answers. We love it when you do. Thank you so much.